First and foremost, despite all the difficulties that we have, despite all the problems that our people have, despite the fact that so many of our brothers are in jail and in prisons, despite all these difficulties we have, I am as proud today to be a descendant of Africans that were enslaved in this country as I was 20 years ago. I'm a son of Africa, and I'm a son of the working class. And that's another story for another day. But we are great people, and we must not lose sight of that. And we are a revolutionary people. Any other people would be proud to have the historical legacy that we have.
Yes, sir.
See, the people who oppress us should be glad that we don't know our history. Because if our people really knew their history, knew the extent to which we had been oppressed,
yes, sir,
and the obstacles which we have overcome, we would turn this country upside down in the head. We are a revolutionary people. Don't you know when they put slavery on us, you know what the law in every colony was? You were born African in this country, you were enslaved, what? In perpetuity. When they constructed the system of our enslavement, they constructed a system which they believed would last forever. But we broke the back of that system. They put Jim Crow on us, and don't just think this slavery and this Jim Crow was something down there. It was up here.
That's right. Talk about
it wasn't just down there. It was slavery in New Jersey. You know that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
There was slavery, and there were 14,000 slaves here in 1860 when the Civil War started.
That's right.
The third most active slave port on the East Coast was Perth Amboy in New Jersey.
That's right. Tell it.
That's right.
Lincoln didn't win Jersey in 1860, he didn't win it in 1864, and when he issued the Emancipation Proclamation, the New Jersey State Legislature nullified Lincoln's power to free slaves in this state. This was very much a state that was in sympathy with the South. New Jersey was not in the 27th state majority that ratified the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery. New Jersey was the last northern state, the last northern state, the last northern state to abolish slavery. So you wonder why you got a problem with racial profiling and police brutality? It's a historical problem. It's a historical problem. In Montgomery, or segregation in Atlanta. I can tell you about movie theaters that were segregated in downtown Newark as late as 1960. Black people couldn't sit in the mezzanine of the movie theaters, had to sit in the balcony. Black people couldn't live in too many places outside the Central Ward because of redlining. Most black people couldn't get a job downtown Newark, but our people rose up, broke the back of Jim Crow. And that's why a lot of those Negroes have jobs downtown today. And they need to remember who made that possible. We broke slavery, we broke Jim Crow, and then we broke apartheid. That's right. We had apartheid up here. We had predominantly black cities that didn't have any black representation.
That's right.
Newark, New Jersey had one black city councilman. And if they could have engineered to have a white councilman from the third ward, they probably would have did it, but it would have been too obvious. So we had one black city councilman. His name was Irvin Turner. That's why they changed the name. But they didn't know somebody else was coming down the line. They thought it was over when they got rid of Malcolm. They thought it was over when they got rid of King, but they didn't know Amiri Baraka was coming down the line. What I know and where I learned it from. I wasn't lucky enough to meet Malcolm. I wasn't lucky enough to meet King. I wasn't lucky enough to meet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but thank God I was lucky enough to meet Amir and Amina Baraka and the members of the Committee for a Unified North. Because we wouldn't have those black people on the city council. We wouldn't have no black man, no black police director, no black cop. We wouldn't have any of that if them brothers and sisters hadn't stood up against the force of reaction. They tried to kill that man. Right. They tried to beat him to death. He still has the scars on his head. They tried to kill him, but they could not kill that revolutionary. They could not kill him. When I was at Arts High School, I wanted to be a lawyer. In 1971, I met Amiri Baraka, then I wanted to be a revolutionary. My first Kwanzaa I went to at the Hikalu Mwalimu, the temple of the teacher, that's Swahili. We used to, one of his headquarters was down the street from my school. We used to pass there every day. The brothers be out there, they would say Habari Ghani. We didn't know what that meant, right? So we called them the Habari Ghani people. My first Kwanzaa I celebrated 41 years ago. That's how long I had known them. For 41 years. I celebrated my first Kwanzaa at the Hikalu Mwalimu in December of 1971. And you know, Sister Amina Baraka wrote a Kwanzaa song. You probably never heard it. But one part of it used to go, Sisi watu, weusi, watu wazuri, pamoja tutashinda, pamoja tutashinda. We are black, beautiful people, and together we will win. Together we will win. Together we will win. I've heard a lot of speeches and I've read a lot of books, but those words I will never, ever forget because I believe them with all my heart and all my mind and all my soul. I believe that we will overcome the great obstacles that face us because we've overcome greater obstacles.
That's right.
This ain't the first time we had difficulty. What could have been more difficult than being enslaved? Master had all the guns. Master had all the horses. Master had the chains. Master had the militia. Master had the courts. He had the law. He had the churches. He had everything on his side. But there was some crazy niggas.
That's right.
Some niggas that was out of their mind. Who did not care what Master had. All they wanted to be was free. And that's the kind of Negroes that are in Amiri Baraka are. I present to you Amiri Baraka.
Peace.
I want to thank all of you for thank you for sitting and being invited to this program. You know, I'm told police call him Lee Chunga. Larry Ham, you know what? He's a veteran. He's a veteran. I was glad to see a person grow up from day one to become the veteran that he is. He's a soldier for people, and I'm glad to know it. First piece I'm going to do is, I have a bad cold, you know, bear with my voice. It's called The African Slave Trade. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, for me. The heart be a slave. I'll be buried in my grave and go home with my people where I'll be free. African slaves didn't come looking for work. Pepper and yam, goober nuts and watermelons, root and seed people came shackled, covered with blankets of blood, came trying to return. In dreams, we walked the water, grew wings, trying to go back home. We hear chariots in our songs. Why don't you swing down, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride? Stayed with guns in our backs, blues in our souls, escape in our bones. We were sold like dirt and bought like fertilizer. Sweat came like rain and land grew white with cotton. Labor made our oppressors king. Didn't sing songs and tap dance in joy of bondage. We worshiped the night and stole away into the dark. Armed ourselves with drums, guides, and guns. Lurked around plantations looking for freedom, freedom. No dropped heads, no scraping feet, no waiting for Abraham. We took our passions, fought wars that carried our freedom slogans and signs of promise. Sun-baked people with red clay waves came from far and near, spitting fire, harboring weapons, and always looking for freedom's way. I want to make freedom. Ooh-ya, shabooty, shabba-dabooty, shabba-booty, shabba-da-da, shabba-ba-ba-ba-booty, shabba-booty-ya, shabba-da-booty. I want to change. I want the blood. I want the bones at the bottom of the sea. I want the tribal languages. I want the cut tongues. I want the chopped off limbs. I want the dead babies. I want the broken backs. I want the runaways. I want the lynched. I want the cotton pickers. I want the hog-maws and the chickens. I want the pork chop bones. I want the chicken feathers. I want the yams and the watermelons. I want the sermons. I want the field hollers and the shouts. I want the work songs. I want the blues. I want the rebellions. I want the prisons. I want the drums. I want the banjos. I want the dances. I want the songs. I want the knives and the razor blades. I want the corn, whiskey, and the gin. I want the graphs and the numbers. I want the big hats and the zoot suits. I want Bessie Smith's hair and Billy's flour. I want Prez's pork pie hat and Charlie Parker's sound. I want James P. Johnson and Thelonious Monk. I want Archie Shepp's blues and Albert Ayler's truth. I want the World Saxophone Quartet. I want the musicians. I want the painters. I want the poets. I want all the liberation organizations. I want all the conferences and conventions called about freedom. I want to collect them. I want to put them in chronological order. I want to organize them because I want reparations. This last piece I'm going to do is called People's Poet. Yeah, I come to organize the people. Yeah, black, Latin, Asian, white. I came to organize the people. I came to organize and fight. And everybody say the people. Everybody say united, united. Everybody say the people will never be defeated, will never be defeated. I want to write blues lines about workers dying of black lung, brown lung, overworked, underpaid, blown up, burnt fingers, cut off limbs, wrecked and wretched lives in general. I want to sing songs that weep the pain and horror of monopoly capitalism. Words that paint imperialism as the world's enemy, because it is. I want to write blues about workers that led the strike, the ones that spoke out, the ones that demonstrated against the death penalty, the ones that fight racism and anti-Semitism, the ones for Palestinian liberation, the ones that seek peace in the Middle East, the ones that passed out leaflets to free the Cuba in the Caribbean, Latin America, the workers that support the Irish and Asian and African revolutions, the ones that led the peace movement, the ones that stand up for working class women, gay rights, and religious freedom. I want to celebrate all of them in a lyrical way, in a way they would like. Yeah, I want to be a people's poet. I want to write fire lines that will catch on to the bourgeoisie's hoods, burn the cover off their lies, expose them as the first and real criminals. I want to write words that will do some good, that will unite the international working class, something that will do good for black people and all people, everybody and everyone that is oppressed. I want to be a people's poet. Use my words to accompany the struggle against imperialism, because that's the only way I can be a people's poet and do some real good. Thank you. Brother died, gave me the wrong directions. thought he said, give a keynote speech. I didn't know he just wanted me. I got 5,000 poems. So I'm going to give this little speech anyway. I would say this. It's a poem. This is a poem called Revelations. The worst criminals are completely legal. They have laws saying they can steal. The worst murderers are completely legal. They have laws saying it's perfectly cool for them to kill. Why is this? Because this is hell. Haven't you guessed? The real question is not how to keep from going to hell. The real question is how to get out. The title of the newspaper that we put out for 20 years is called Unity and Struggle. Why? Because in terms of the overall dialectical dimensions of what exists, in the sense of up versus down, dark versus light, slow versus fast, so that particularly describing the task of the Afro-American people historically, our need for unity is clear. Our need for struggle against those forces that brought us here, one of which was our own disunity in Africa after the 14th century, which saw us warring among ourselves and subsequently selling ourselves in the slave trade. It was called a triangular trade, so-called. African captives of tribal war sent west. The cotton, molasses, and tobacco produced by the slaves sent to Europe, and European manufactured goods, including guns, liquor, furniture, to Africa. So you always have to remember that part of your oppression has been our willingness to attack each other. There is always unity and struggle in accomplishing anything, but in the still ongoing emergency situation of being an oppressed people, which we are, that must be fundamentally clear. If we are to accomplish anything, even at this moment, it is the general disunity of the African people that allows particularly Europe and the United States to exploit and oppress us. It was our understanding of this historically that allowed the ideological clarity called Pan-Africanism to emerge. Once the principle of slavery in the U.S. was over, in that legal, formal sense. In actuality, it has never stopped. But by the end of the 19th century, our leading thinkers, W.B. Du Bois, principal among them, had put forth the concept of Pan-Africanism, that no matter where we were in the world, we must struggle against our collective oppression and exploitation. We are oppressed all over the world, even in Africa. Wow. Secretary in 1974 at the Sixth Pan-African Congress put forth the idea that Pan-Africanism is the worldwide struggle of African people against imperialism. But when we say unity and struggle, we should know that we mean unity among ourselves, not just racially, but also among people who are working to accomplish the two conditions that we must achieve here in the U.S. Equal rights and self-determination. It was never about integration or separation. That was a false dichotomy that confused some of us. It was always unity among those we could be unified with, and struggle against those that struggle against us. Those who struggle against our fight for equal rights and self-determination, equal citizenship rights and self-determination. And while we believe that the majority of black people are our first target for unification, we must remember that everybody look like us ain't us friends. Du Bois characterized the Afro-American struggle as suffering from the Sisyphus syndrome. You know that we push the rock of the mountain. When you get it to the top, we push it to the top of the mountain with unity and struggle. Then the self-styled gods of monopoly capitalism and white supremacy hurl that rock back down on our heads. I learned the term Afro-American from Malcolm X, particularly as immortalized in Ozzie Davis' beautiful eulogy. You should try to get that on the net and read that at Malcolm's funeral. Black is okay and direct, Afro-American is scientific. Negro is past tense. And we tell you right now, don't take no wooden Negroes. They're only worth 3 cents anyway. We got to put our 2 cents in. We got to speak up loud and clear that we have made real progress in these 3 centuries we've been here in a big bunch. but we still don't have no equal rights. We still don't have no self-determination. 145 years ago, we were chattel slaves, other people's property. Some of these Negroes still think and act like other people's property. Your boy King, for instance, who tried to lure you able blacks into the Republican Party. Or the other Negro they named Steele, so you would know he was a real public coon. So now, there's an Afro-American president, just 145 years later. Yeah, that's progress. And that progress happened because of our unity. It was those 97% of the Afro-American people who decided Obama was going to be president. 60% Latinos, 50% Asians, who we united with to make that decision. Plus, there was those progressive white people we unified with, and you know all those categories are minority. And we have got to do that again in November. I know Obama has been often less than we need. Sometimes he has outright outraged me with some of his decisions. Bailing out the banks and insurance companies never sat well with me. I had 10,000 copies of the newspaper Unity and Struggle passed out at the inauguration in Denver, whose headline read, "Mr. President, no bailout. Nationalize those institutions." Why should we pay rich people to get richer while we unemployed and foreclosed? There's still 6 million people a day being foreclosed. I spoke to some other Harvard University Negro business graduates, and they thought what I said was absurd. But what I said was that those auto industries should be taken over by the U.S. government, just like those corporations take over your car, your house, if you don't keep up the payments. Sell those corporations to the workers. Why should we give our money to management? Well, it's obvious they can't manage. And even though it was our money that bailed them out, they still foreclosing. They still not giving out loans. Even the ones that destroyed the corporations with mismanagement still left with multi-million-dollar parachutes. I'm thinking particularly of a guy named Richard Full, who was head of the collapsed financial institution Lehman Brothers, who left, and as he clarified to a congressman, he left with $34 million. But Obama proved that he definitely was not a socialist, as these Republicans who are now unable to say Negro straight out. So they call him a socialist, or they're birthers. They want to see his birth certificate. It is his face, not his birth certificate, that infuriates the most. On the other hand, there are a bag of Negroes now who think that since Obama became, we should say, since we made him president, that the struggle is over. They believe in unity too, since they feel now they have made it into State of America, that they are at least graham crackers, not true. Did you see Murdoch's New York mirror showing Obama as an ape being shot by the police? That picture itself is a violation of federal law. Murdoch should have been arrested. This is the president, everybody said among them were. Well, all those certified maniacs in the Republican debates have made some off-the-wall comments about black people that you know what they think. Gingrich want our children to be child janitors rather than fool around in school. Sanitarium, is that his name, Sanitarium? He said something so foul, he said he was just mumbling. What about the term food stamp president? But most people on food stamps are white, you fool. But that is the corner we have been pushed into. The Obama-sanctioned bombing and overthrow of Libya and the murder of Gaddafi was sickening to me. But who would you have in there? Ron Paul, who put out foul racist newsletter? Perry, who had a property marker on his Texas ranch called Niggerhead? Ask Romney why the Mormons thought that black people were unfit to belong to the Mormon church until the 70s. Now this coming election necessitates our unity as well as our struggle against our most virulent enemies. Sometimes it seems that the Republicans simply took off the white sheets and got into Congress. Remember, it was after the Civil War, when we thought we were free, when they organized the Ku Klux Klan to make it clear we weren't. Then when our then Republican friends pulled the Union Army out of the South, and the new Klan overthrew the black-influenced state legislators in the South. Those legislators were black. And then they created the Black Codes, which are new enslaving laws in the South. A few years later, we showed our unity again when millions of us left the South. Read Isabel Wilkinson's fine book, The Warmth of Other Suns, about the mass black migration out of the South. That's how most of us got here, say it, from Newark, or New York, or Chicago, or Los Angeles. the unity of struggle against our enemies. What Du Bois was talking about with his characterization about